Welcome to Black Nouveau. This is a special edition. We're going to visit some places that highlight African American history in Wisconsin.
Places you and your family can visit, like the National Railroad Museum here in Green Bay.
We'll show you the Underground Railroad here at the Milton House Museum.
Or if you prefer the comfort of your own home, we'll go online to America's Black Holocaust Museum.
You may think the Wisconsin Black Historical Society and Museum is a community meeting space, but it's much more. When you're going east on Center Street, you can't miss the Wisconsin Black Historical Society building. It's the one with the imposing mural across the wall depicting the beauty and richness of African American culture. From Africa to America, from slavery days to the vibrant community called Bronzeville, this museum is a treasure trove of artifacts and information about Black Wisconsin. When you visit, you will see and touch the exhibits that tell the history. You'll learn some of the labor history of Black Wisconsinites and see the tools they used in some of the toughest jobs available to them.
To you, thank you. To this to you, thank you. Thank you.
Inside, you meet the heart and soul of this place, the man who dropped one successful career to pursue his dream, this museum.
About it, I'd be happy. Father, I'll give that to you. And I guess you could split up into groups, actually do your research. But look at me and talk to me for a minute before we actually start. Now, so what's special about Wisconsin's history? You guys are from Indianapolis? Cool, there's some interesting things about Wisconsin. African Americans migrated from the South just like they did, and coming to Indianapolis, they came here for industrial use.
26 years ago, the photojournalist for WTMJ Television News bought this former library and began collecting artifacts and photographs that tell the stories of Wisconsin's African American heritage.
That's real cotton. And look at the man and all of the people picking cotton up in the top up there. You see that there, cotton? You see it comes out of a plant, and your shirts, your pants are all products of this material. In this particular exhibit, we're talking and showing people about the great skills that African Americans brought with them to Wisconsin as farmers and as people who sharecrop throughout the South. People would think that they didn't have skills. In many cases, they couldn't read or write, but they were very talented.
Benson wanted to show how Black Milwaukeeans lived and contributed to the growth of the city for many decades.
Bronzeville is the most important piece because although we were small in numbers, African Americans were a significant population. Much of the entertainment, much of the people who migrated from the South lived in a segregated area, and that was Bronzeville.
There is much more to learn at the Wisconsin Black Historical Society and Museum.
African Americans played a major role in the history of American railroads. Leading up to and through the Civil War, Black slaves played a major role in building the railroads. After the Civil War ended, the expansion of the railroads continued to mean hard labor for free blacks.
I don't know, but I've been told Susie had Jelly Roll. I don't know, but I've been told.
Railroads moved people across the nation, but not comfortably.
Sleeping car service was very poor. When we got to the late 1860s, a gentleman named George Pullman realized that we were traveling by rail between some of the major cities in our country, and the hotels we were staying in at either end were pretty nice accommodations. And his idea was, well, why can't those sleeping cars on the railroads be just as nice?
This Pullman sleeper at the National Railroad Museum in Green Bay is an example of the kind of luxury Pullman wanted.
It has 10 of the original Pullman berth accommodations. It has a bedroom and it has 2 compartments. And it was amongst the standard Pullman arrangements for the time. Very stable, nice, smooth ride. If you can imagine, on either end, restroom, one for the men, one for the women. The full load would have been about 26 passengers, one Pullman porter.
It is part of an exhibit, Pullman Porters from Service to Civil Rights.
George Pullman hired some of his first porters literally as freed slaves from the southern cotton fields after the Civil War. And he did so because he wanted someone that was used to servitude, could appear demure to the public, and could easily follow rules. And so he began to develop what was originally called the Pullman Palace Car. There was a Pullman porter on every car who was there to take care of the passengers, make down their beds for them, provide them with a glass of water at 2 in the morning if they needed it.
The work was long and hard, but the Pullman porter became symbols of prosperity in their neighborhoods.
When Rosa Parks was arrested, the first person she called was a gentleman named E.D. Nixon. E.D. Nixon was also a Pullman porter.
Pullman porters were a major part of the modern civil rights era. It was Randolph who called for the 1963 March on Washington for jobs and freedom. And it was the Pullman porters who helped expand the African American middle class.
It was one of the first times that the African American society, especially the men in the African American society in our country, could have a solid, regular job with some status to it. For the first time, African Americans had the buying power to attain cars when they came available, to buy homes. And then the next generation went to college off of those earnings and created a better life for the generations beyond that.
There is much more to see at the National Railroad Museum, located in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Joshua Glover and Caroline Qualls are perhaps the most well-known freedom seekers who escaped from slavery moving through Wisconsin. Many stopped here in Milton on their way north. The Milton House was an Underground Railroad stop built by abolitionist Joseph Goodrich. It is one of the few Underground Railroad stations that is actually underground. It is the only such site that is open for visitors in the United States. Wisconsin was an anti-slavery state. The Seventh-day Baptist Church, the largest congregation located in Milton, was involved in the Underground Railroad and the abolitionist movement.
So the fugitive slave law was basically a witch hunt. You could say, I think I saw this person with somebody last night, or I think I heard that they did something, and they were arrested on complete rumor. And under the law, slave hunters had to be allowed complete access to the entire state. I think Wisconsin was lucky that we were as close to Canada as we were. We needed to get any fugitive slaves to the shorefronts of Lake Michigan. It was not the safest way onto Canada, but it was definitely the fastest way at the time to get them there. If anybody was found guilty, they faced a $1,000 fine and a whole year of imprisonment. But 1850, this is where the big turn of the tide was. The churches started to take their real stance on slavery, and the abolitionist movement grew like wildfire. The cellar here was the kind of the holding area for any fugitive slaves that came into this building. The beginnings of the tunnel actually come in from the cabin where there was a root cellar in the middle of the cabin. We do know that ours had a ladder going 5 feet down. So fugitives were told to go down that ladder 5 feet and then feel for where the tunnel began. It was 3 feet tall, all hand dug in the dirt. They would crawl on their hands and knees, 45 feet all the way here into the cellar of the Milton House. So this concrete floor, or the dirt floor that was here with that hay and straw could be used for bedding. You would have had all your food items down here, would have been crates, barrels, burlap. Whether they were here for a couple hours, a couple days, maybe even longer, they would have to go back through that tunnel again that second time to meet up for the next abolitionists when they were ready for them.
The number of slaves that escaped to freedom through Milton is unknown, but their legacy can be seen at the Milton House Museum.
If you like to travel online, America's Black Holocaust Museum is for you.
Hello, my name is Reggie Jackson. I'm the museum's head griot. This page is your doorway into American events, sights and sounds that are rarely found in our history books, yet are fundamental to our understanding of ourselves as a nation.
America's Black Holocaust Museum was the brainchild of Dr. James Cameron, the only known survivor of a lynching. He was one of 3 young men hanged in Marion, Indiana in 1930. This picture is a grisly reminder of that event. As a result of that experience, he decided to create the museum in 1984. Dr. Cameron died in 2006, and the museum continued to operate until 2008. It was reborn in 2012 as an online museum to document the Black Holocaust.
Well, the Black Holocaust is what we call a description of about the last 500 or so years of history of African Americans. Their enslavement during the transatlantic slave trade here in the United States as well as throughout the Caribbean, South America, all of those things were included because most people think that slavery just happened in the United States. They aren't aware that those enslaved people were taken to other places throughout the Americas, and so that's a big part of it also. Is slavery. We talk about not only slavery, but some of the things that happened during the course of slavery, some of the daily injustices that people of African descent had to suffer in terms of breaking up of their families, them not being allowed to read and write, things of that nature.
The virtual museum is filled with detailed descriptions along with vivid pictures and videos that highlight the key events in the Black Holocaust.
Then had the period of Jim Crowism. And this is when we began to have laws that allowed segregation of schools, segregation of trains, segregation of buses, all of these different things. So this huge mechanism that we know as Jim Crow.
Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees.
The site is structured around 4 themes: remembrance, resistance, redemption, and reconciliation. While the museum chronicles the many hardships and barriers African Americans have faced, it isn't just about tragedies. It is also about triumphs and resilience, and of shared cooperation that benefits all Americans. One such example is the Rosenwald Schools, a partnership between Booker T. Washington and philanthropist Julius Rosenwald.
I hope you keep an open heart and inquiring mind as you travel through the galleries. Take your time, absorb what you experience, and visit frequently. Exhibits are always being added and updated.
There's more to see and learn at America's Black Holocaust Museum.